The accounting firm of Haynes, Eisenbarger, and Skiba presents the 27th College Football Hall of Fame season of Fighting Irish Preview. And now, the Guadalupe's Mexican Grill Kickoff with your host, Phil Houck.
In South Bend, playing great defense is back in style. Passes defended, quarterback hurries, interceptions, fumbles forced, relentless pursuit. Overall, in 7 key statistical defensive categories, the Irish rank no worse than 11th nationally. ND is giving up an average of just 279.9 yards per game, that's 11th best in the nation, and 15.3 points, 10th best. After finishing 129th out of 130 defending the red zone a year ago, the Irish this year have soared in red zone defense to second best. That's good defense. Yep, ND's defense has been good, and they have done it against a difficult schedule. To date, the full slate of opponents Notre Dame has faced has posted a 45-18 win-loss record against every other team on their schedule. That's a tough schedule. And ball magnet Xavier Watts is prowling the ND secondary with such ferocious efficiency that he just may be playing his way into an early entry to the NFL. Captain and Mike linebacker extraordinaire J.D. Bertrand is working on leading the Irish in tackles for the 3rd straight season. In the secondary, Ben Morrison and Cam Hart are the best cornerback combination ND has had in years. And this past Saturday, backup corners Jaden Mickey and Christian Gray both made interceptions. Mickey's was a pick six. Across the defensive line, the play has been dominant and has shown steady improvement over the course of the season. The starting combination of Howard Cross III, Riley Mills, grad transferred Javante Jean-Baptiste, and Jordan Botello, and a heavy rotation that goes 10 deep, has been formidable. In the Week 6 win over Duke, Cross was named the National Defensive Player of the Week for his 13 tackle, 2 forced fumble, 1 fumble recovery performance. And that national award has now been matched 2 consecutive games by safety Xavier Watts. 7 tackles, 2 interceptions, and a 15-yard scoop and score against USC, and another 2 interceptions by Watts against Pitt. Watts now leads the nation with 6 picks. At the rate the Notre Dame defense is performing, they may well go down as one of the best ND defensive units in years. The last Notre Dame team to allow fewer than 15.3 points per game was the 2012 team, and the last to better ND's current total defense number of allowing 279.9 yards per game was in 1996. J.D. Bertrand, Xavier Watts, Ben Morrison, Howard Cross and company are on track to post numbers not seen in years in South Bend. Indeed, in South Bend this year, great defense is back in style. Guadalupe's Mexican Grill, now with locations on Illinois, Leo, and DuPont Roads, and in Georgetown Square. Guadalupe's food made fresh. Now, stay tuned for Fighting Irish Insight from America's foremost authority on Notre Dame football, Tim Priester, senior editor of IrishIllustrated.com. After these words from Haynes, Eisenbarger, and Skiba, Sheer McCulloch Auctioneers, and Flight by Yingling. 2.6 grams of carbs and 95 calories. It's the next generation of light beer. This is Fighting Irish Preview.
The University of Notre Dame exemplifies dedication to hard work, integrity, and personal values, which result in success in the classroom and on the football field. The professionals at Haynes, Eisenbarger, and Skiba, like Notre Dame, know the same dedication, and their experience and expertise provide peace of mind for you and your business. Tax planning, tax compliance, auditing, business valuation, and estate planning, the full-service accounting firm of Haynes, Eisenbarger, and Skiba, like the Irish, has what it takes to help you achieve success. Located in Fort Wayne near Jefferson Point, Haynes, Eisenbarger, and Skiba proudly supports Notre Dame football and congratulates all those who are a part of the greatest tradition in all of sports. Go Irish!
Flight by Yingling is the next generation of light beer. For those who don't follow trends, but craft them. Flight by Yingling is 12 ounces of uncompromised refreshment from America's oldest brewery. With only 2.6 grams of carbs and 95 calories, this is premium refreshment 6 generations in the making. Don't just raise a glass, raise the bar. Flight by Yingling. Available wherever beer is sold. DG Yingling and Son Incorporated, Pottsville, Pennsylvania. Please enjoy responsibly.
Now back to Fighting Irish Preview with your host, Phil Houck.
Well, Tim Priester, it was a dominant win. All phases, I thought, for Notre Dame had a good day. Special teams, offense, defense. Were you surprised that Notre Dame showed such dominance in this game? After all, Pitt has usually played Indy tough, but the game could have been much worse if you think about it.
Yeah, Phil, I thought Pittsburgh would compete better, but there have been occasions where, on one hand, Pat Narduzzi's team has hung in there. On another hand, Notre Dame's wiped them out. 3 years ago at Pittsburgh, it was 45-3. The only thing that, I thought when I saw the point spread was 20.5, it's like, wow, they really think that Notre Dame's going to hammer this team. And, the other thing, Phil, was that we knew that Pittsburgh had lost a lot from the previous year, especially on the defensive side. So we thought it would be a successful offensive game for Notre Dame. And then with Pittsburgh starting a young quarterback, it was just a really bad situation for them. And Notre Dame took full advantage offensively, defensively, special teams, all 3 phases for the second straight game.
Yeah, and save the 2 unfortunate interceptions off the start. I mean, you could have probably chalked up another 14 points for the Irish because it was kind of a slow start. But, very outstanding performance in all phases of the game for the Irish. And the most consistent phase of this team from week to week, the offense has been up and down. We know that. Tim, I would contend that this is one of the best Notre Dame defenses the Irish have had in years, and they've been very consistent this year. Are they historically good? That's my question.
Yeah, I really think so. I mean, it's the best one, certainly statistically, since 2012 when Notre Dame played for the national championship. I'm partial to the 2002 defense that was led by Kent Baer, Tyrone Willingham's first year. You may remember that offensively Notre Dame really struggled, but that defense was great and kept them in every game. That's how they were able to win 10 games that year. So those are the 2 that come to mind. Certainly Clark Lee's defenses from 2018 to 2020 were outstanding as well.
Well, just looking at points per game allowed, Notre Dame is on track right now. One of the better numbers in the country. I think they're 11th, 15.9 points per game. The last time they allowed less than that was 2012. That defense that went to the CFP, 12.8 points were allowed per game. Now, total defense, Notre Dame at 279.9 yards per game. That is really a spectacular number. And the last time that Notre Dame had less than that would have been 1996. So, historically significant what this defense is doing this year. And in the game, we saw some, they weren't at full strength. The Irish were not at full strength. Jaden Mickey had to start in place of Ben Morrison. And freshman Christian Gray saw a lot of snaps in this game. Those 2 cornerbacks played really well. They each had an interception. Tim, what does that say about Notre Dame's cornerback room?
Well, it's one of the better ones that they've had, certainly one of the better ones in the country. We know about Cam Hart and Benjamin Morrison. Jaden Mickey had the pick 6. I still think that he has a ways to go to be a consistent cornerback. I love what Christian Gray has offered Notre Dame since his arrival in the spring. They knew right away that they had a great one. He had a spectacular interception. He's just a kid that I've kind of gravitated to because the few times that we've had opportunities to interview him, you can tell he's humble, he's mature, he's a Notre Dame fit. And I tell you what, he's longer than you think. And every time he comes in for an interview, we say that because you just I don't know that necessarily the statistics like height and weight show it, but just long limbs, long football player who I think has a chance to add his name with the great cornerbacks at Notre Dame.
Well, he proved his length on that interception by leaping high in the air, tipping the ball to himself. That was a very athletic play that took a lot of length, no doubt about that. And me too. He came in front of the media this week, and you saw, much the same thing I did, and just mature, endearing personality. I think you're right. A great fit. I also want to say something about Jaden Mickey. And he came to us post game late Saturday afternoon. And there was a good feeling in the room, I thought, for Jaden Mickey, because getting that interception, that pick six, and then he talked about how it was great knowing that his mom, who is at home battling cancer, he didn't point that out, but everybody knew it, and was home and was able to see that pick six play. And he said that was really the first thing he thought about after he succeeded it, was that mom saw him do that. Great stories about both of those corners, and that's just the depth in that room. And talking about the cornerback room, let's talk about Coach Mike Mickens. Marcus Freeman asked about it this week. Would Mike Mickens, Tim, be a good candidate to succeed Al Golden at defensive coordinator if Golden gets a head coaching job somewhere or heads back to the NFL?
I hesitate to just flatly say yes. I know that Marcus Freeman indicated that he is ready to be a coordinator. I know he's a great cornerbacks coach, and then Marcus Freeman filled in some of the blanks about his understanding of defenses and just his schematic knowledge and where he's headed. I don't know for sure if Marcus Freeman would make that move with a guy that hasn't been a coordinator. But I suspect that if Al Golden is still around at Notre Dame next year, we can. Well, and already Mike Mickens is the passing game coordinator, but I suspect there's a possibility that he could be listed as co-coordinator next year. And who knows? I know there are a lot of great coordinators out there that have proven themselves, but Mike Mickens has certainly proven himself as a great cornerback coach.
Yeah, and I would point out there is a comparison in recent Notre Dame history, Clark Lee succeeding Mike Elko. Clark Lee without a lot of experience, although everybody kind of felt he was definitely a protege of Mike Elko's at the time. I remember that. So the story isn't a perfect comparison, but that worked out pretty well for the Irish. Tim, Chris Tyree, what a terrific story. His transformation from a running back to a pass receiver this year, and his punt return touchdown. With that, he joins a very select group, as was pointed out. I think it was Tim O'Malley that probably came up with this. Rocket Ishmael, Julius Jones, and Tim Brown as the only players in Notre Dame history that we know of that have scored TDs 4 different ways: pass, rush, kickoff return, and now a punt return. He's also coming into his own as a pass receiver. Worked so hard during the summer, reportedly caught 20,000 balls in the offseason. Talk a little bit, though, about that punt return, because it was an excellent display, not of Tyree, but some great running by him, but also some great blocking.
Another young man that you cheer for because he is such a Notre Dame first guy. But yeah, we all remember the kick return against Wisconsin a couple years ago, which was outstanding. But I would argue that the punt return, the 82-yard punt return against Pittsburgh, was his best play ever. One, he broke some tackles, which isn't something that he's done a lot of during his career. And then two, he showed some wiggle in the open field. He was very well blocked, but he showed a little bit of the ability to escape and then kick into the great speed that we know he has. So I would, I don't think I'm going to get much pushback on this, but I would argue that is his best play at Notre Dame because it combines some elements in his game that haven't always showed themselves.
Yeah, it was an exciting play. Punt returns always are when they're that successful, but Tyree really rounding out his game. And does he have another year of eligibility? Is there any chance he would be back next year?
Yeah, I think there's a great chance. I know that Marcus Freeman floated that idea out there publicly on Monday, but it seems like Chris Tyree has been here longer than 4 years, but he is a fourth-year senior. So, with the COVID year in 2020, he has another year. I think it would be great for Notre Dame. It would also be wise, I think, to a large extent for Chris Tyree, because if he makes as much progress next year in college as he has in preparation for playing the position in 2023, I think he'll be very ready for a shot at the NFL. So Notre Dame needs him. So that may be a little bit of a biased opinion, but I think Chris Tyree also understands that he's still relatively new to the position, getting better all the time, and he could enter the NFL the following year much better prepared than he is at this moment.
Yeah, and I would have to believe he would just come back to Notre Dame as a big star next season. NIL money's out there that might be part of that enticement, but certainly 1 year to improve his pass catching skills would make sense for his NFL future if there is to be one. One more thing about punt returns. We have to mention Jordan Faison and his punt return. That was, about 25 yards, something like that. That was a really exciting play. That's something to look forward to as well. Comments on that, Tim?
I mean, that play, when I rewatched the game, you see it from the ninth floor of the Notre Dame press box. But when I rewatched that Sunday afternoon, it was actually 20 yards, Phil. It was a spectacular 20-yard return. You saw his elusiveness, you saw his speed, you saw his vision. Very much looking forward to the possibility of Jordan Faison being Notre Dame's punt returner next season.
Yeah, that could be, although Tyree may be back, as we just talked about.
Tyree would, good competition there.
But I would expect Faison to be getting more looks at everything, because I think he's also going to be a good one. All right, we got to talk quickly about the depth in the tight end room with the loss of Mitchell Evans, and we'll go into injuries in the second segment. But who's going to take up the mantle at tight end for the Irish with Evans on the shelf?
I mean, we know who the remaining tight ends, it's dwindling. I mean, Eli Raridan, he's still trying to get back into form, coming back from his second ACL. Holden Stays is a leading candidate. David Sherwood is the blocker, and freshman Cooper Flanagan scored his first touchdown last week. But I really think that, I think Notre Dame will probably try to employ somebody like, some of the bigger receiver like Jaden Thomas, Jaden Greathouse, who can line up in the slot and run some, tight end like routes. I think those guys they're obviously a little bit smaller than Mitchell Evans, but I think that they can help bridge that gap. But they really have. I mean, if you can fall back on Holden Stays as your starting tight end after losing Kevin Bauman, after losing Michael Mayer last year, and now losing Mitchell Evans, that'd be pretty good.
Yeah, that's not bad. Stays 12 catches on the year, 163 yards. He has 4 touchdowns. Lots of talent in that room to pick up the slack, but no doubt Mitchell Evans, a real loss for the Irish. Tim, the Irish come in at number 15 in the first CFP ranking this week. Was that a fair ranking? Notre Dame is number 12 in the AP poll.
I think it's fair. I think some of the rankings in the AP aren't fair. Notre Dame is the second highest rated 2-loss team behind LSU. I think, I wrote about this in Thursday Thoughts on Irish Illustrated. I mean, you can flip a coin there right now. But Alabama hosts LSU this weekend, and Notre Dame goes to Clemson. So I think it'll separate, but I'm fine with that. I'm in recent years, there's such a disregard for losses at times in the rankings, and I just don't think that's right. So some of those 1-loss teams moved ahead of Notre Dame in the college football playoff rankings. I'm fine with that. I think that's fair. LSU Notre Dame's kind of a coin toss, but I think there'll be some separation one way or another, I believe, after this weekend. But those 1-loss teams, I think they deserve to be ahead of Notre Dame. Plenty of time for Notre Dame to get into the top 12, 11, 10, where they want to be for a New Year's Six Bowl, provided that Notre Dame, of course, defeats Clemson and goes on and wins their last 2 games.
Yeah, and that's got to be the priority, of course, for the Irish, just take care of business. A lot of those 1-loss teams are going to turn into 2-loss teams pretty soon. So I thought the poll rank at first glance, I wasn't sure, but then when I looked at it, it made sense. One quick hit, Tim. Notre Dame basketball heating up. They open up Monday against Niagara. A lot of excitement in the air with the new head coach, Micah Shrewsbury. In quick hit style, what are the prospects for this Irish basketball team?
I thought they looked really well coached in their exhibition game against Hanover. The freshmen played well. They shot it well. They really worked hard on the defensive end. It looked like a very well-coached basketball team heading into the start of the season on Monday, hosting Niagara.
All right. Hosting Niagara, we're going to learn a lot more about this team soon. Thanks, Tim. Coming up, it's the all-time Irish hero, key to an Irish victory, injury report, and the world-famous Irish Illustrated prediction. And during the break, it's the Fighting Irish Fact of the Week, brought to you by Ron Wise and the Wise Insurance Agency. This is the 391st edition of Fighting Irish Preview.
This is Art Salzberg. I don't speak for a lot of companies, but Shearer McCulloch is a firm that provides a great and much-needed service. As Sharon and I get older, we've been thinking of moving, but frankly, the thought is somewhat overwhelming. That's where Shearer McCulloch comes in with a full-service plan that takes the pressure off. Listen to this. Shearer McCulloch will sell your house, auction the items you don't want to take, then pack everything else and move you. In sports terms, that's a blowout win. Shearer McCulloch uses an international auction platform to make sure your possessions are seen by the right buyers. They'll get top dollar for your special treasures. Shearer McCulloch is highly recommended by leading retirement communities and law firms, plus they're AAA with the Better Business Bureau. Call them at 441-8636. That's 441-8636. They'll make your moving experience easy and profitable. Shearer McCulloch.
The Fighting Irish Fact of the Week is brought to you by our friends at the Wise Insurance Agency. With 2 interceptions against USC and 2 more against Pitt, Xavier Watts is the first Notre Dame player ever to intercept multiple passes in back-to-back games. Call Ron Wise at the Wise Insurance Agency or go to thewiseinsuranceagency.com and get an auto or home quote in less than 5 minutes.
Flight by Yuengling is the next generation of light beer. For those who don't follow trends, but craft them. Flight by Yuengling is 12 ounces of uncompromised refreshment from America's oldest brewery. With only 2.6 grams of carbs and 95 calories, this is premium refreshment 6 generations in the making. Don't just raise a glass, raise the bar. Flight by Yuengling. Available wherever beer is sold. DG Yuengling & Son Incorporated, Pottsville, Pennsylvania. Please enjoy responsibly.
Now back to Fighting Irish Preview with your host, Phil Houck.
This is Fighting Irish Preview. The 12th-ranked Irish are on the road this week against the Clemson Tigers. TV coverage on ABC starts at noon South Bend time. And it's now time for the all-time Irish hero, brought to you by the Marina at Lake Gage. Chris Craft, Mastercraft, Vanderbilt, and Premier Pontoons. New and previously owned, we share your boating passion. This season, we are focusing on the best defensive players of the last 20 years. So far this season, we have talked about Harrison Smith, Manti Te'o, Jalen Smith, Drew Tranquil, Alohi Gilman, Tavon Coney, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, and this week, one of the most exciting athletes to man the safety position ever at Notre Dame, Kyle Hamilton. When Kyle Hamilton first committed to play for Notre Dame in the spring of 2018, the buzz quickly spread that he was a special talent. And in his 3 years at ND, he did not disappoint. A two-way player at Marist High School in Atlanta, Hamilton was blessed with size, speed, and quickness. He enrolled early at ND in June of 2019 and checked in at an impressive 6'4", 220. During Hamilton's first spring and fall practices, Brian Kelly kind of played it coy, but word kept leaking out about his spectacular play in practice. He played in all 13 games as a freshman, and he recorded a pick 6 in just his second game played. During that first season, he was named a freshman All-American, and to anybody watching, it was obvious that he was an extraordinary talent. Hamilton became firmly entrenched as a full-time starter in the 2020 pandemic season. He led the Irish in tackles and was one of the key reasons the Irish rolled to an undefeated regular season. With 63 tackles and 7 passes defended, he earned first-team All-American recognition. He was so good that it was obvious that his skills would be headed to the NFL, and sooner than later. Sure enough, his junior year was his last one at Notre Dame, and despite suffering a knee injury that limited him to just 7 games, he was spectacular. Elected as a team captain, he roamed the field and made the kind of plays that were rarely seen. Against Purdue on a key 4th and 1, he came from across the field and stopped a jet sweep cold for a loss with an out-of-nowhere tackle that observers in the press box that day said was just this side of impossible. I was one of those observers, And I have watched a million football plays, but my football brain that day told me that the play Hamilton made could not be made. After 2021, Hamilton was a consensus All-American and the first-round draft pick, 14th overall of the Baltimore Ravens. Kyle Hamilton was one of those rare athletes that rarely comes around.
You know, Phil, I saw him when there was no fanfare for Kyle Hamilton. He was listed as a 3-star prospect. I remember looking at that film, and I thought to myself, not only is he not a 3-star, at the very minimum, he's a high 4-star and really trending towards a 5-star prospect. And he proved all that. And he proved it. He proved it in, he gets on the practice field, and I think they counted, 12 or 13 interceptions during August, during preseason camp. And so you knew right away he was truly special. He shared time with Gilman and Elliott at safety during his freshman year, and then really took off. But a sensational football player. He's tearing it up in the NFL. He's everything that we thought he was once we realized that he was not a 3-star prospect.
Yeah, word of those practice interceptions before his first season kept filtering out, but Brian Kelly didn't really want to admit what he had, but you could tell from the look on Kelly's face, he knew he had something special. And then you talk about his NFL exploits. A few weeks ago against the Indianapolis Colts, Hamilton set an all-time franchise record with 3 sacks in the first half of the game. And as a Colts fan, I was a little torn up both ways on that one. I was happy for Hamilton, but that sure hurt the Colts. Kyle Hamilton, another Marina at Lake Gauge all-time Irish hero. The Marina at Lake Gauge, we love boats, and it's now time for the Aspen Mortgage Key to an Irish victory. Ranked number 9 in the preseason, Clemson unexpectedly has limped to a record of 4-4. Last week at NC State, the Tigers fell 24-17. They also have lost to 4th-ranked Florida State 31-24 in overtime, and at Miami 28-20. Last year, Clemson had run to an 8-0 record and number 4 ranking when ND took them out 35-14 at Notre Dame Stadium. Since that start of that night in South Bend, the Tigers have struggled to a record of 7-7. At home, Clemson has been particularly tough to beat. Until late last season, they had won 40 straight games in their stadium known as Death Valley. An analysis of Clemson's national rankings statistically paints a picture of a team that has played solid defense but has struggled to finish drives and has not protected the football well. Quarterback Cade Klubnik is in his first season as the full-time starter. He is a 64% passer and has thrown for 1,947 yards, 13 TDs, and 5 interceptions. He is mobile in the pocket and will run the football. Junior Will Shipley is the leading ground gainer with 515 yards and 3 TDs, but he is in concussion protocol and may not be available this week. Another junior, Phil Maffa, is next up, and he has been nearly as effective as Shipley. Junior Bo Collins and freshman Tyler Brown have been the top 2 receivers. They have put up nearly identical numbers and have combined for 62 catches for 805 yards and 4 touchdowns. 6'6" tight end Jake Briningstool is a solid weapon. He has 31 catches for 344 yards. Clemson is 121st nationally in red zone efficiency, scoring just 71% of the time. They've lost 10 fumbles, one of the worst marks in the nation. The Tiger defense is good, very good. They give up just 21 points per game and are led by All-American linebacker Jeremiah Trotter Jr. Trotter is having another stellar season and leads the Tigers in tackles. Edge rusher TJ Parker has notched 4 sacks. Cornerbacks Sheridan Jones and Nate Wiggins lead a pass defense that is allowing just 167 yards per game, the 9th best mark in the nation. Tim Priester's so-so offense, really good defense, some close losses. What is the Aspen Mortgage key to an Irish victory?
We don't expect Shipley to play this weekend, so it's just Maffa. Maffa's a bigger back, but he doesn't give them the elusiveness that Shipley does. So I think Notre Dame's in a position to really make them one-dimensional, and part of that is the mistakes that Klubnik has made with pressure on him. And you mentioned Tyler Brown. He's listed as questionable for this game. And they also have been out with Antonio Williams, who's a leading returning receiver, is out with a toe injury. So You need to make them one-dimensional. I think Notre Dame's defense can do that. And then on the flip side, Notre Dame's got to be able to score enough to get past them. Miami rushed for 211 yards a couple weeks ago. I'm giving you a lot there, Phil, but I think it's two-pronged. You have to slow down that offense by limiting them to a passing game that could be compromised because of their receivers, and then run the football. If Miami can do it, Notre Dame can do it against them too.
Okay, make them one-dimensional and you limit that offense and score just enough points, and that's going to mean get that running game going. Those are Tim Priester's Aspen Mortgage keys to an Irish victory. And Tim Priester, who is this week's Aspen Mortgage key player for the Irish?
Phil, I'm going to say it's one of the linebackers. It's either going to be Maris Leofau or J.D. Bertrand. One of them is going to be blitzing when Klubnik throws an interception to the other linebacker. Could it be a pick six? Notre Dame scored some defensive touchdowns lately. I think Notre Dame's linebackers are going to benefit from a strong pass rush.
Look for Leofau or Bertrand to make a big play this week, and that is Aspen Mortgage key Irish players this week. Aspen Mortgage, for all your mortgage needs, call 486-LOAN. And it's now time for the injury report, brought to you by Indiana Physical Therapy, your choice for physical therapy now with 22 Indiana locations. Tim, some bad news at the tight end position, but a couple guys that were injured last week are going to be back. How are the Irish health-wise going into Game 10?
Yeah, those are the guys I'm focusing on, Phil. Obviously, Mitchell Evans wasn't just Notre Dame's best tight end. Now he was their best receiver. So that's a significant loss. I'm sure Clemson is looking at that as a huge advantage for them. But the trade-off, I guess, if there is such a thing, Benjamin Morrison, Cam Hart will be back. I think they hold a clear advantage over Clemson's wide receivers, especially with a few of those wideouts being banged up.
Okay, Benjamin and Morrison and Cam Hart back, and that gives that really good defense even more firepower than they had against Pittsburgh. Thanks, Tim, and that is the Indiana Physical Therapy Injury Report. And it's now time for the world-famous IrishIllustrated.com prediction, brought to you by SES Environmental. Need help navigating environmental risk and with regulatory compliance? You need SES. Look them up at sesadvantage.com. Tim Priester, Vegas says the Irish by 3. So what does America's foremost authority say?
This game is really concerning to me, Phil, because I think the whole nation, especially Notre Dame Nation, is looking at this as a win because Clemson has 4 losses. But I'm not saying that Clemson should have or could have won all 4 games, but they individually they could have won any one of those games. So they're still dangerous. They're good defensively, number 6 in total defense. I mentioned the injuries on offense. They are banged up at safety as well with R.J. Mickens. I see this as a low-scoring game. I think Notre Dame is the better football team. I don't see either team reaching 30. I barely see either team reaching 24-27. But I think Notre Dame is the better football team. They're going to have to withstand a crowd that may be a little bit mixed because of the 4 losses, but Notre Dame's walking into a tough place. I think they're ready for this battle. I think Marcus Freeman will have them ready. Notre Dame 24, Clemson 20.
Notre Dame 24, Clemson 20. That is Tim Priester's world-famous IrishIllustrated.com prediction. Tim, you know, I agree. I'm with you. I expect 2 motivated football teams this week. Notre Dame has a lot left to play for in 2023, and Clemson, in front of their home fans, is looking to salvage something from a once promising season. They've circled the wagons, I have a feeling there. So Irish catching maybe a bit of a break with the noon start, because if it had been a night start in that stadium, I'd be more concerned. Anyway, the defenses are the headliners in this game. I give a slight edge to the Irish and how well they are playing right now on defense. And on offense, the Irish, despite losing Mitchell Evans, I think they also have the clearly an edge in this game over the offense for Clemson. But my score is very similar to yours. Notre Dame 24, Clemson 17. Thanks, Tim.
Thank you, Phil.
Go Irish, and thanks for listening to Fighting Irish Preview. Special thanks to Jim Shovelin, Brett Rump, Art Salzberg, and studio producer Adam Schenkel. For more Fighting Irish Preview, check out fightingirishpreview.com and also listen to and subscribe to our podcast, available on all podcast platforms. Fighting Irish Preview is the copyrighted property of Judge Phil Productions.
Podcasts by Federated Media.